I actually described us as the corporation with state lines south of Canada. As far because I'm like, it's not even fair to call it a country at this point.
Or
like
Florida. We're the Florida of the world.
We're the Florida of the world.
I'm sorry, Floridians. We're Floridians, so
sorry. You guys are Floridians, so you guys. That's why, I just laughed. I didn't, because. But
you didn't further take a jab.
In Miami, that was one of the few places where the cops took a knee. Which
really?
It was Miami was one of those places. Yeah, Miami was one of those places. Yeah. And right now that's nothing more than a gesture, but it beats tear gassing people and pummeling them. Yeah. I'd rather and but I think it's very symbolic and nothing more, but it's symbolic of where you need to start changing things because this whole reform the police, that ship has sailed.
Yeah.
There's you have to start all over again.
I agree. 100%.
You have to completely start all over again. And I'm not saying we can't have any law and order. Of course, that's not the reality of the world. You have to have some law and order. But the concept of police as we know it has to go away. And we have to just completely redo all of this. And it starts by listening to members of your community and figuring out how to start fixing this and figuring out, okay, what type of law and order do we need to have? How do we need to orchestrate this? Why can't we have more peace officers who are unarmed and are just kind of overseeing the day-to-day stuff? So if someone has a counterfeit $20 bill, they're not knelt on until they're dead. If someone's selling loosies, they're not strangled to death. And that whenever there is a situation where, violence may be required because the use of force is 100% necessary and there's no way around it, you send in people who are very properly trained to handle that. And these aren't people who weren't screened at all, so they might be members of the KKK. These aren't people who have untreated PTSD, so they might not be able to de-escalate anything. These are people who are trained extensively in handling those unfortunate situations where the use of force is completely unavoidable. That's the point that we're at. We can't reform. It's too late. There is no reforming this. It is too far gone.
I think it's also key, Ron, that we do what Black Lives Matter was talking about the other day. We have to start defunding the police as well.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, taking all the weaponry out of Iraq that we had to bring home and giving it to our police force, not the best idea. I guess if a guy has a military-grade weapon, he might think differently about his job. Okay, this is the gun you get for your job. Well, then your job becomes completely different. Like you said, we need peace officers out there. If we're going to fund the police, let's fund more peace officers, more verbal, more talking, more less weaponry. And that's the problem right now, is that we give the police all this weaponry, all this armory. How do you think they're going to act?
And this is what
hell does a city of 9,000 people need with a tank? Why does that police force need a tank? All they're going to do is make a really bad drunken decision on the Saturday night someday. That's all that's going to happen.
This is why people want guns, right? This is why you can't get rid of guns on civilians too, because you have a police force and a military that's so heavily armed that people, and also it's such a vast distrust in the government, so people just aren't comfortable having not having guns, and especially in situations like right now where people are looting, where there's martial law, where the police are pretty much breaking into everybody's rights. You saw them shooting into people's porches in some of these videos, just because they were watching. I mean, there's so much being broken right now that it really quells a sense of fear. And so if you've noticed, the gun sales have gone up throughout the pandemic, and even socialists who some of the socialists are embracing gun ownership. And this is why we wouldn't have this sort of sense of we need to make sure we're armed if we trusted our government. It would be so much easier. We need to demilitarize the police, in my opinion. They do not necessarily need all of those weapons.
Oh, of course not. Of course not. Yeah. I mean, the first step is demilitarize. And then the absolute simultaneous step is, okay, we're completely gutting this system and we're starting all over again. We are starting all over again. Police officer, as we know it, should not exist as a job. That job should just not exist. It's too far gone. We need to reevaluate what these positions are, what the responsibility entails, what the power structure is, and how it is enforced. And that needs to be done within a community.
Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You can tweet me an article at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together and make it our own. Get your